I'm Cameron Kempson. I'm the Director of Education for Simply Home, and here today to help facilitate this particular Zoom meeting, which is going to be about tech planning using the organization tech plan form as well as the individual tech planning form. Dustin?
Yep. Hello, everyone. I'm Dustin Wright with Disability Cocoon. We've partnered with Simply Home to pull this curriculum together. So excited everybody's going through it. Thanks for being a part of our pilot so far.
Yeah, we thank you for your patience and all the feedback. It's been really helpful for us. So today, we just want to open up first with a little bit of discussion to see if any organization has started using the organization tech plan form, and if you'd like to give any feedback about that. Okay, no worries.
Can I just ask a clarifying question on that? I'm Colleen with Inclusa, and we have, I believe, 12 of us from our organization that are going for the ETIS certification. So if we are only going for that, we shouldn't be doing the tech plan, correct? The organizational plan? Or am I incorrect in that?
No. That's a great question, Colleen. We'd like to find a way to help support you in, even if it's just amongst the 12 of you getting together and looking at that form and doing some work on it, just so that you can appreciate what organizations go through or how you and what you do might support them in developing their tech plan. But we understand that there are agencies involved who would typically not have an organizational tech plan per se. But given that you may be taking a technology first approach, having some of that information spelled out on behalf of your organization may be helpful, even if you're not providing the direct service piece of day-to-day residential or employment. So Dustin, what do you think about that? If they just get together among their team and create an org tech plan that would be geared toward their organization?
Yeah, I mean, technically, you guys, you said, Colleen, you guys were not kind of enrolled for that, Tech First Organization accreditation. So, doing it would be an optional thing, but I think that, and we can kind of talk about that offline if it makes sense for Inclusa to do that with what you're trying to do going forward or not. So I'll make a note to reach out to you and we can talk about that kind of offline.
That sounds perfect. And it may evolve into that. We're just not quite there yet. We're a very large organization, and so we're trying to determine how best to approach that. And right now we're just trying to gain some experience. And but yeah, if we could talk at some point, that would be great.
I'll shoot you an email.
Thanks, Dustin. So let's jump in then. What I'm going to do is share my screen. We found yesterday that by going through the tech plan template, that really sparked some questions from people as well as suggestions about how we might update this template. Simply Home developed this a few years ago as a part of working with providers and doing consultation and then moving into a Tennessee 3-year pilot project. We found that as we were talking with the organizations, they were asking a lot of questions about what kind of policies and procedures do we need to be writing? How do we need to be thinking about this in terms of direct support planning and remote support planning? And we felt like that consultation could be sifted down into a template that would walk providers through, here are the things that you need to be thinking about as you prepare for enabling technology integration. So I'm going to share my screen and we will start looking at the org tech plan. When we work with organizations, we encourage that this tech plan is developed by a team of people, not just one or two folks sitting down and filling it out. And the reason why we suggest that is because you need to have the capacity to access all the stakeholders and people with different perceptions and perspectives who will be helping to integrate the technology. The contents page just gives you a feel for the different areas that you'll be covering in the tech plan. And then we start into the plan itself. And what we've tried to do here is Give the topic area, but then also give some prompts underneath. And yesterday, as we were going through this with people, we did have some great suggestions about other prompts to add that would give more clarification. So we will be going back and making those at a later time. So we decided to start with organizational structure. And the very first and most important thing is having an organization really clarify what is their commitment to technology. That can not only help the organization understand what their approach is going to be and define what their programming and services might look like, but it also helps everyone come to the table with a common language and thinking about how are we going to make this successful and how are we going to be proactive. So this should be a pretty rich area of conversation as well as description about what you think about community supported living and how will you be integrating enabling technology and person-centered planning. The next section is the ethics and human rights, HIPAA and confidentiality. One thing that we do encourage organizations is to make sure that you are looking at regulations and compliance issues within your own state and within the IDD and DHHS world that your state supports. And yesterday, Dustin even made a great comment that maybe we need to have a section on here about regulatory compliance and what that would mean for the organization. So we'll be adding that in there. Defining your technology team. This is a great place to start as you begin dreaming, thinking, planning for the integration of enabling technology, is pulling together those people who are really interested, not just maybe the leadership folks who want to make this a possibility, but other people within the organization or maybe some of the natural supports or community partners who really have buy-in, because it's this team that will be the go-to for not only working on this plan, but also for answering questions, maybe for looking at new types of outcomes or technologies that may be of interest to the organization. This team we envision as being facilitated by the ETIS role, somebody who can really champion and understands how enabling technology works and can benefit people. And then we encourage you to find other tech champions who are interested in being a part of this process and really supporting their colleagues and the families and the self-advocates as they make this transition.
And something that we didn't mention yesterday that I was kind of thinking about after yesterday's webinar is that there's nothing saying that you can't bring in people from outside your organization that are also experts. So, you know, maybe going to your local AT Act programs, depending upon, you know, who they are and your relationship, or other people within your local or state government that have been kind of champions for tech. There's nothing to say that you can't invite other people outside of your organization to be a part of that.
It's a great suggestion.
I have a question. This is Amber. I'm just going through the certification for the, not the organizational one. If we wanted to pursue that later, can we come back and do that? How does this transition if it's just me that's getting this certification and not my entire organization, but potentially down the road, that's something that we want to do, because I'm pretty sure DNS will probably want to pursue that at some point.
Dustin, do you want to
answer
take
that?
that?
Yeah, absolutely. Once, so you're going through right now as an ETIS, and you're the only learner from within your organization. So you can transition your ETIS to give your organization credit for having, the one already ETIS. There are other requirements that organizations have to have at least 2 ETISs. 10% of the DSPs go through the credentialing component of the curriculum, and then have one kind of leadership executive person also go through it. So you got to kind of have 3 leadership type roles and then 10% of the DSPs, but we can absolutely work with you to transition what you've already done into that org tech plan. And that goes for any agency out there that is in a similar situation.
Okay, gotcha. That's very beneficial because I'm sure some of my upper management will want more information about that as we
Yeah,
progress with enabling technology with our agency.
good
Thank you.
question. Thank you for asking that. Yeah, and everybody, if you have other questions like that, I mean, we want to spend this time kind of going through the tech plan with you, but these webinars were designed to be as interactive as possible. So please come off mute, contribute thoughts, comments, and questions. So yeah.
So I have a quick just follow up with defining your technology team. Like Cameron was saying, is in Dustin, hey, reach out to your local state government and see if they have anybody that could be a part of that. As far as Tennessee goes, we have tech champions in each of the regions that would be glad to be a part of your technology teams so that they can keep you updated with any updates in policies, procedures, new technology vendors, so on and so forth. So those of you who are on this training from the state of Tennessee and part of a provider agency when developing those tech teams, feel free to reach out to your regional tech champion and invite them to be a part of it as well. It's greatly appreciated.
Thanks, Milton. And thanks for the question, Amber. We appreciate your speaking up because I'm sure there are other organizations that may have that or individuals that may have that same question. So thank you. So let's look through the rest of this first section. Determine responsibility, that's really brief. That just means talking a little bit about who's going to be responsible for the technology in terms of upkeep. And as you can see on number 6, that segues into that one. On number 5, one piece of that is when we've worked with organizations, sometimes the technology, like a medication dispenser, something that is freestanding. Sometimes that may be kept in a locked cabinet or a locked room at certain times of the day, or is fully the responsibility of the individual because there are no other direct supports. There's just natural support. So just kind of defining there how you're going to educate and work through responsibility as well as maintenance. Once the technology is in your hands, there will be some tech support and updating that the tech vendor may help you with, or coming on site if needed to repair something or update some technology. But in the day-to-day, the organization or the individual or the family is responsible for that routine maintenance, just like you would do for a smoke detector. So we strongly encourage organizations to build into those checklists for DSPs, their regular roles and responsibilities. Then, once a month, go through and make sure the technology is working, make sure the batteries are working, check the customer portal, test the sensors, all of those pieces that would ensure that everything keeps going smoothly. The next 2 parts of this section are probably the most critical and the ones that you will really want to detail out. Those are the remote support plan and then the direct support backup plan.
Cameron.
Yeah.
Real quick, sorry.
Yeah,
and I may have missed it as I was writing something else down, but back up to number 4.
Yeah.
Selecting your tech vendors.
Sorry. Yeah, we forgot.
No, you're fine. Yeah. I was just going to throw out a few ideas on,
Please.
some things that as you're, looking for tech vendors or specific, it is sometimes best to work with a handful of vendors that you have a very good relationship with and an ongoing relationship with, because you get to know the ins and outs of how to implement their technologies and they get to know your individuals and you can just make a really good fit. But you shouldn't be limited to the tech vendors that you pick. Obviously you want to have a variety of options for the people that you're serving. So some questions to ask those folks as you're looking at specific tech vendors to fill the needs of the people you're serving. The first question I would ask is who are they? When I say that, are they a tech company that just creates tech and the tech happens to apply to people with disabilities? Or do the people that work there have a background in services and supports to people with disabilities and they happen to do this tech thing too? So that is a big question. What's their background? Are they strictly tech or are they more human service oriented that is doing tech? What's their footprint? Where are they able to provide services? That will also kind of lead into what are your support parameters? You know, how quickly can you provide support if tech fails? But also how quickly can you get out to do that? And what are you going to be responsible for in supporting the technology, and what do we have to be responsible for? Kind of down to number 6 there in Cameron's list is, you know, of maintaining the technology. That's where that's going to kind of come in. And then also you're going to want to check with their, you know, are they certified, if necessary, within your state or your particular waiver program that you're operating in. You may not always need that, but it's just good to know what, you know, if they hold some certifications in some other states, it's a pretty good indicator that they are a pretty quality organization because they're getting audited by that other state. So just some things to think about, and that is by no means an inclusive list of things that you should be asking, but just to kind of get you thinking on some things that you need to be asking.
That's great, Dustin. Thank you for sharing all those things.
And just to add quickly to Dustin's thing is that notice that it says select your technology vendors with an S and not just one vendor. It's very important that you understand that a lot of technology vendors do provide a lot of the same equipment, but some of them do specialize in different types of technology, and they can easily work together with one another to put together a good technology solution that really fits the people that you support. So if one technology vendor cannot, you know, provide exactly what you're looking for, feel free to partner with another technology vendor so that you do have multiple options for your people that you support, and making sure that you understand it's not a one size fits all, and that sometimes partnerships with different technology vendors and building a technology vendor network is a really important thing as well. So yeah, just don't be committed just to one. Technology provider network is really important as well.
Definitely.
That'll also give the individuals that you serve more options to choose from, so that it can be customized to their, you know, unique needs and preferences.
For sure. And being able to have that array just keeps it even more person-centered. So, all right, so I'm going to go back down. Thanks, Dustin, for catching that, because that's an important one. I appreciate that. Going back down to number 7 and 8, these two should be pretty detailed. And I have had providers say to me in the past, well, these are going to be pretty individualized based on the person, so we don't really need to put anything here. And actually, what the point of the organization tech plan is to get you to start thinking about that skeleton or that framework for how you eventually will do it for the individuals. So noting for remote support, you know, where are those people going to be located who are providing remote support? Are they going to be coming from their homes? Will there be a hub location? What's the expected response time? All of those things that, yes, may be customized or individualized as you get to those self-advocates, still need to be documented here, because that's also going to help you train your staff before they start integrating this with people. The direct support backup plan is different in that this covers what happens when technology malfunctions, if the power goes out, if we lose internet, if there's a natural disaster, if we have COVID, those things that you would need to do to put direct support in place until the natural supported technology can be up and running again. So there you need to be thinking about who's going to be the direct responder to check on the people, who's going to supervise the process or coordinate it, who will be checking to make sure the technology is back online and working again, who may be getting in touch with the vendor to see what's going on with the technology should something malfunction. All of those things need to be detailed here, because regardless of who's using the technology, those are standard responsibilities that will need to take place should technology malfunctions.
And to kind of elaborate a little bit on that, the backup plan as an agency, you kind of have to think about it two ways, right? Well, the first way is who's going to be responding directly to that individual if there needs physical support for some reason, or technical failure, whatever it is. But how are we going to get somebody out to that one home? The other, as Cameron said, natural disasters could happen that could wipe out internet connectivity in, a dozen of your homes that are using technology. And then all of a sudden you have 12 homes that need backup response at the same time. So as an organization, you kind of have to think about it and plan for those natural disaster type situations where all tech stops working, and how are we going as an organization, how are we going to address that? And I think yesterday, Milton brought up a really good point on this webinar yesterday, that don't just, your backup plans don't have to just include people within your organizations. Don't forget about the natural supports involved in people's lives, families, neighbors, friends, etc. That can also be, play a pretty important role in those backup plans. And I've seen backup plans done in several different ways. Some agencies just have, the administrator that is already on call for that agency, be that responder. I've seen agencies where they will have one staff person stationed in one home that's kind of centrally located, and then can be dispatched from that home. And then, obviously supports would need to be provided to individuals in the home when they leave the home, either through remote supports or other technologies until they return. And then I've seen other agencies do it where they have one person kind of floating between the different homes that are using technology throughout the night to do other, QA type stuff, or documentation audits or those kinds of things, but entering the home physically periodically throughout the night. So there's lots of different ways to do it.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah. The other piece too, Dustin, that I don't want to forget here is, weren't you telling the group yesterday that there's a webinar on the extra learning piece?
Yeah, there is. Let me show the screen here real quick. I actually have that pulled up.
Please.
So that everybody can see where that's going to be and kind of see the future of Shift that we wanted to create. So this probably looks familiar to most of you. When you first log in, you can see your learning plan here. As we come down, though, you'll see a catalog of other courses that are not tied to your curriculum, but are there for your continued learning. You'll see we only have 2 videos uploaded right now from Disability Cocoon Tech Fest. I've got probably 30 more of those that I'm going to be uploading. We have workshops that will be uploaded here, and this is what Cameron was talking about. As you're working on your remote support plan as a part of this tech plan, this is a 5-hour deep dive into everything that we did at Disability Cocoon that gives you basically a blueprint on how to think about remote supports. And it goes pretty deep. It's 5 hours long, so you may want to break it up into sections, but this would be a great resource for you. And then we're also going to be putting all of the tech huddles that we have done and will be doing in this area as well. So this library that you see here of only these 6 courses will be 100 plus additional courses that you can go through at your leisure that are not necessarily required for your credentialing or certification or Tech First Organization accreditation. But just we want Shift to be an ongoing learning experience, right? So that it's not just I do my courses, my learning plan, and I'm done. We want people to come back here to investigate and find new things and learn new things, and hopefully we can get people starting to chat around some of these specific topics in here also, so you can learn from each other. So I just want to make sure you guys were aware of that. The remote support workshop is where you're going to get information on that will be very helpful for your remote support work plan or tech plan.
Great. Thank you so much for showing that. That's really helpful. Okay, let's get back to the org tech plan. So we've talked about remote supports, direct supports. The next piece is communication. And really what this is a follow-up to what you've seen in the courses that you've been taking. And that is, how are you going to start having that conversation, not only with your internal staff, but also with families and the individuals, as well as support coordinators, case managers, people in the community like landlords and employers. We have learned over time that communication is key, and helping people understand your commitment to this process and to technology integration, it will go a long way if you're proactive and have that communication beforehand rather than waiting until afterwards or trying to stumble your way through it as you are doing implementation as well. It just leads to too much frustration or concern on behalf of many people. So this is where you will define that as an organization. How do we want to start making that happen? Your IT plan, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say this may sound a little derogatory, but it's not meant to be that way. In my previous role, running a remote support agency, there were many times where we saw direct support professionals that were not communicated to by leadership within an organization, and there was some confusion on, I'm going to be losing my job because this technology is coming in, and we saw those folks intentionally manipulate individuals into changing their mind so that they would say, I know I don't want technology because I really like Sally, my staff, and I don't want to lose her. So it's an important piece to make sure that folks know why you're doing this, that where, if their job is going to be affected, and, giving them some reassurance that tech is not going to put any DSP out of the job, right? I mean,
definitely. Yeah, and we talk about that in a couple of the courses, some suggestions on how to have those conversations with direct support staff. Moving into the IT plan, this is just a quick one for you to think about your existing IT plan, not as in the technology you'll be integrating to support individuals, but more about your overall IT network and how this tech integration may fit into that piece. Documentation and reporting, again, very critical, because not only is it supporting what you're doing and giving you the opportunity to go back and evaluate, giving you kind of that cause to pause and really critically think about what's working, what's not working, how does technology need to evolve, are the outcomes ready to evolve. But this documentation reporting, since we are in the early stages of what technology first means, states and provider organizations are needing to show ways that they are reducing direct support, increasing natural support, and technological support. And so having those pieces available to keep that tracking so that you can pull them will be critical, possibly to your funding, to any compliance issues with the state if they are requesting documentation as a part of your Tech First plan. So one thing I do want to show you here is on the enabling technology integration plan that we have for the individuals, you will find on the second page this section down here at the bottom. And what we've tried to do here is help you capture these numbers by days of the week. So number of paid direct support before technology, and then after technology, number of hours of active remote support, observation and response, and then number of hours of technologies and natural response without any direct support. Those are the kind of numbers that states have been asking for from providers. So we wanted to make sure we gave you a way to document that on the individual forms. Going into education, I'm not going to spend any time walking through these three separately, because in your in your courses, you have seen a lot of information about why education and reskilling is important. Just want to highlight that it does not only apply to staff, but you need to be thinking about what kind of education as a part of your communication needs to happen with people outside the organization, as well as your self-advocates and the families that are with them. So finally, let's go through daily program operations. This really covers 4 pieces: the identification of individuals, the assessment of outcomes and goals, that person-centered planning piece, and then ongoing evaluation. So for each of these first 3, we've given you a document via Shift to help you with this. So identifying your individuals, Don't forget to include how you'll use that matrix, that screening matrix, as a part of this process. The assessment of your outcomes and your goals. We've given you an intake form that will help you get together a lot of information that technology vendors will be asking you for as you go into that assessment. So using that form to prep ahead of time.
And real quick,
yeah,
don't hesitate to also ask the tech vendors that you've identified to help you with this, because they are obviously the experts in their specific form of technology and have seen this work or not work for many different types of individuals. So, you know, lean on them. They can be helpful.
Definitely. And a lot of times their websites too will have some really helpful information about the pieces of technology and the outcomes that they can offer. The third piece, the person-centered planning, we've offered you this tool, the Enabling Technology Integration Plan. What this does is this walks a team through all of the documentation that could be necessary for integrating technology and demonstrating how it is an effective and safe natural support. So again, thinking about that deep dive level of information that you can add to the ISP, service plan or support plan, that may need to be demonstrated to the state. And then finally, I don't want to devalue or skip over this annual evaluation piece for two reasons. One, I'm going to actually change this annual, the word annual, to ongoing evaluation, because I think, as we all know, that as people learn and grow, their outcomes change, and that doesn't necessarily happen right at a year mark, right when it's time to do the annual review for the ISP. So I would strongly encourage you to do that ongoing evaluation using that data that the technologies are keeping in the customer portals, you know, reviewing that monthly and seeing if people need to change their outcomes. The other reason why this is so important is because technology is ever evolving, and so are human beings. And we want to make sure that you have a good fit. And sometimes technology won't work out, and that is okay. But we'd rather know that within the first month or two rather than waiting a whole year or having something sit on a shelf and get to the annual review and somebody says, yeah, that didn't work. We put it up last December. So taking that opportunity to really spend time with the team, reviewing things regularly. And then finally, we've added this last section because we've had states and provider organizations, or states require provider organizations to have these pieces as a part of their tech planning. So just know that these are down here, and we would strongly encourage you to look at the regulatory compliance piece within your state, and do any research needed to make sure that you are adhering to those expectations that your state has for people with disabilities. So any other feedback while I've got the form pulled up? All right, well, I'm going to put us back. I'm going to stop sharing so we can see everybody. Any questions about the form itself, or what you may be using it for, or what you've been thinking about in terms of your organization?
While people are thinking about that,
yeah,
let me show you something real quick also, just to make sure that you guys are all seeing all of the things we're trying to build in here in Shift for you. So if you come into your account and you come here to the menu and you want to search for enabling technology, so maybe this is a way that you can potentially find vendors or solutions that will, you know, meet the needs of the individuals that you're serving. We have two really good search tools built in here. One is called ATVisor. They're an Israeli-based company. Disability Cocoon has partnered with them to bring them to the US. So we are in the process right now of working with the tech vendors that Disability Cocoon has a relationship with to get them uploaded into here. This is a really great tool where you can you basically fill out a profile for an individual based on their diagnosis, needs, preferences, and then the system will make recommendations on the types of tech that may be beneficial to them. Ultimately, it does always need to be a team decision, but this can give you some recommendations. And then bridging apps where you can actually search for apps that have been kind of pre-screened. So I just want to make sure that people saw these because that's, a big piece is what, when you're trying to identify tech vendors and find solutions that are going to work for people, these are two great tools that you have. So
Nice.
back to you,
Justin,
Cameron, sorry.
Can I just ask, I'm very excited about that. You had shared that once before. Is that available now, or is that something you said you're still kind of working through and getting ready?
No, it's done now.
Oh, great.
I'll put a link in the chat so that everybody can get there, but it's in your Shift account. Colleen, probably what you were remembering is there were actually 3 different phases to that project. Phase 1 is just building out the search functionality, right? So you type in, I need help with seizures or meds, whatever, and it spits out some recommendations. That's part 1. Part 2 is then a management process for an organization to actually acquire that technology from the selected vendor. So there'll be a process by which, hey, we like this device. Let's push that out to the team. We've got team approval now. Let's push it to our internal ETIS that reviews it for, appropriateness and meeting the organization's, tech plan that they have put together. Then it sends it out to get bids from multiple different vendors so that you can get the best price and the best vendors. And then ultimately you get the tech. So that's kind of the second piece, which is the management piece of it. And then the third piece, which is something that will really help with your tracking of data, as Cameron was referencing, that would be, ROI data. The third piece of that is going to be a place where we will hopefully be able to tie into state waiver service authorization systems and actually show financial ROI for that specific device that was purchased with that process that I described in section 2. But also efficacy for the individuals, right? Did this actually improve their life? In Cameron's example, was the device used or was it put on the shelf back in December and now it's not being used? So there will be 3 phases to that. Phase 1 is done, 2 and 3 are not. We're hopeful that we're going to get a grant to build those out soon. So
That sounds amazing. Thank you.
yeah, thanks for asking. We do have a comment here, Cameron. It says, do you have any statistics or data analysis on the success of enabling tech among people with IDD?
I don't personally, but I think one reason why we started Shift and started this idea of a standardized approach to enabling technology was so that we could do just that. We are so grateful to states that have stepped up and said, hey, you know what, we want to be a tech first state. But as we know, phrases like that can mean a lot of different things. And so how do you call yourself tech first, or how do you teach somebody to be tech first if there's not a standardized approach to best practices, and if people don't know what those best practices are? And so really the goal of Shift is to help organizations make that transformation. Our desire is to create those opportunities, to provide that education, and to really start helping the industry start creating a level of best practice that is standardized and that people can have benchmarks for. So Dustin, is there?
Yeah, I was just trying to find a link. If you were looking for some research that actually shows that, there is a study done by Purdue University 15 years ago that I have. And then there's also a study that was done by Ohio State that actually shows where they went out, sent researchers out, talked to individuals with disabilities about their experience with, these were more remote support specific. So the Nysonger Center at Ohio State is something, and I'll find the link and put it in the chat here for everybody. So there are a handful of those studies, but there's unfortunately just not a whole lot other than those 2 that I'm aware of yet. I think that it's a big area, and I'm hopeful that we'll see more of that done because it kind of shows the proof in the pudding, right?
Definitely. I think what we've looked at in the past, I know Simply Home has a sister provider organization in Wisconsin. And when they first took 100 people out of institutional care, 98 chose to live in community supported living with technology and direct support. And so we did write a paper. We have a paper on that, and the dollars saved. And I think it's, dollars saved is a very key to this whole process. I understand that. But we have not always looked at the quality piece, and how are we truly empowering people? How are they perceiving their lives post tech integration? How do we capture those things? And so we're hoping as Shift moves along, and as we start seeing those standardized best practices come into place, that we can expand what Shift is doing and start to really, leverage what we're doing to be able to get that kind of data. So not only would we know dollars saved, but also the quality of services and the quality of life enhancement that people are feeling.
And Cameron, I know for the state of Tennessee, we've been collecting and tracking information about who's using enabling technology. We've actually done a satisfaction survey among our participants to see if they are satisfied with their living environments before and after enabling technology. We are crunching the numbers right now, so we don't quite have all the information available, but we are crunching the numbers. And like Cameron was saying, we have found through our pilot experience that there are certain best practices that show and amount to somebody being successful with using enabling technology, and some of those things that are very important for the success and the satisfaction of enabling technology is doing those initial assessments to make sure people are ready for technology, going through the person-centered planning process and making sure the technology matches the actual support needs and interests of the person, and picking out the right technology and technology vendor to support those needs. And finally, being able to put all that information into a nice, clear tech plan for everybody, integration plan, as we should call it, that everybody can follow. Because if you don't have that methodology, if you don't have that integration plan in place, we have found out that technology just turns into a giant paperweight and it's not used. So, and people are not going to be satisfied. So it's very important that you implement these best practices to ensure a better success rate with using enabling technology. And that's why we are so gung-ho with having Simply Home put this training together to be able to educate people and understanding that process.
Thanks, Milton. Appreciate that. Thanks. Yeah, I noticed Tina Taylor said over here, that's the part I enjoy, is the quality piece. Yeah, we know that Medicaid needs to know that those dollar figures, and we do too. I mean, that helps us better appreciate the direct support piece, the natural support piece. But I think in order for this tech first ideology to evolve, we have to know about the self-advocates. We have to hear their voices, and that's the next crucial piece of understanding. Dustin, is there anything else you want to add today, or do we have any more comments or questions before we close out? I don't want to hold anybody longer than we need to.
Now, to Tina's point, the link that I just sent you there to the Nightonger study does really get into the individual's perception of the use of tech. So it's not just financial ROI that they're looking at. They're actually looking at how effective has this been for improving independence and keeping people healthy and safe. So
nice. Thank you for putting that up there. I will note that we are recording this particular webinar, so we will post this. We did not record yesterday, so we apologize for that, but this one we will post. And then all of the suggestions that we've received in the last 2 days, we'll be using those either to update the organization tech plan, to note them under the FAQs on the website, which again is techfirstshift.org. That's not the Docebo platform. That's the website where all the information is about the pilot project. One more key piece before we leave, actually two. One is the next webinar. Next week, we will be doing a webinar on what we're calling organization dynamics. And this is an opportunity to come to the table and talk about what are the barriers or challenges that you're facing or that we've learned from other organizations who have started this process. And then what are the successes? And how do we be proactive about both in order to address the challenges early and really celebrate those successes so we can keep moving forward with momentum. So that's what we'll be doing next week. The other piece is we've had questions about when and how to submit paperwork. When you go to your learning plan, the very last thing on your learning plan after your exam will be a course where it's a course that's structure that's designed for people to upload paperwork. So that's where you will upload your documents in order to finish out your certification candidacy. So just know that that is its own course and there is a place for you to upload those once you're finished. Any other questions? Oh, please.
Actually, I have one other thing. I know that there are a few of you that have called in on a phone or requested a link from me directly to join this webinar. If you joined the webinar through Docebo, you're completely good. You're going to get credit for this course and you'll be able to move on. If you did call in or just click a link outside of Docebo to get to this webinar today, please email me, and I just threw my email address in the chat there. Please email me so that I can manually give you credit for attending this session today so that you can continue on.
Great.
This is Amber. I have a question real quick before we end today. If you're just getting your ETIS certification, and maybe I overlooked it, is there a list of what documents that we need to complete and upload at the end, just so we know exactly which types of documents you're looking for completion?
Yes, Amber, on the website, it will detail for you those documents. It's basically the screening matrix and then the intake form, and then this planning, not the organization plan, but the individual integration plan form. Those three focused on one person, one individual.
Okay.
And it talks about that there. And then it will also remind you when you log in to submit your paperwork, it will remind you again what you need to be submitting.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, gladly. But yeah, please use that website, techfirstshift.org, as your reference point for on the pilot project page, because I have all that detailed out for you guys there. Anything else today? Because I know Dustin's ready to go on vacation. So
I'm leaving the house in 5 minutes.
So we will say thank you to Dustin and enjoy your time. And you guys, thank you so much again for being here. We really appreciate it. Always look forward to having conversations and learning from your experiences. So we look forward to seeing you next week and have a great weekend.